Hello, Upper Iowa students. Welcome to week 8, where we are focusing on direct services, primarily digging into just Tier 1 universal services. So last week, we talked about the multi-tiered systems of support and including in our multi-domains of academic, career, and social emotional development within those multi-tiers. But now we're just digging into that first level of the pyramid, looking at Tier 1, which will serve 100% of our students and likely be effective for about 80% of our students. So let's go. The Deliver component defines the methods school counselors use to provide activities and services to students and for students. This component consists of 2 broad categories, direct and indirect services. We'll talk about indirect services in a couple of weeks, but direct services today and focus on that this week. Direct student services are in-person interactions between school counselors and students. Through direct services of instruction, appraisal, advisement, and counseling, school counselors help students develop the knowledge, attitudes, and skills outlined in the ASCA Mindsets and Behavior Student Standards. And we do that to help students improve achievement, attendance, and discipline. So there are 3 outcomes again. So Tier 1 universal services for all students. This core of our program is comprised of delivery of services that all students receive. Curriculum, they all receive individual student planning and school-wide programs and activities. A standard and competency-based school counseling core curriculum is developmental in nature, preventative and proactive in design, and comprehensive in scope. Individual student planning includes a comprehensive approach to ensuring all students have a 4-year plan and explore post-secondary options. School-wide programs and activities for all students, such as national awareness, pride, celebration campaigns, post-secondary exploration and planning events, activities designed to promote a positive and inclusive culture and climate, and family education programs can be included and can be provided to all students and or families. They are also aligned with classroom lesson content and standards and support the core program overall. This week's table of contents where we will hit is starting with action plans and lesson plans. We're going to look at what this looks like as a part of the templates that ASCA encourages us to use to kind of streamline our planning. Also, I want you to review in the ASCA implementation guide, pages 75 through 82. And 95 through 101, because that is where you will read and see examples of action plans and lesson plans. Then we're going to hit section 3, deliver. You will be reading in the ASCA National Model, pages 77 through 81. And then we are going to skip over to chapter 7. So following chapter 6 last week, you will be reading chapter 7 in Building Trauma-Sensitive Schools. Discussion questions will be based on your readings this week, where you will answer on UIU Learn in the discussion board. And then also you will respond to at least 1 peer this week. And then we're going to look at the next assignment, which is the response to intervention pyramid. And that is due at the end of week 10. Right, so digging into action plans and lesson plans. Now, this is important for you guys to really dig into that implementation guide and looking at the examples, because the comprehensive school counseling project at the end of this semester, that project includes you completing lesson plans and 1 action plan for your group. So the action plans, the classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan provides an overview of the school counseling program through the delivery of direct services in classrooms or large and small groups. It ensures the appropriate mindset and behaviors are addressed with students and communicated to stakeholders. The annual calendar, along with this tool, clarify the scheduling and details of program delivery. Classroom and group mindset and behavior action plan is standards driven and ensure that every student gets everything, meaning the whole curriculum designed for his or her grade level. What content will every student receive because they came through the front door is essentially our universal tier programming here. Again, developmental design, preventative in nature, and comprehensive in scope. The action plan guarantees that families, students, teachers, and other stakeholders know exactly what curriculum students will receive and at what time throughout the year. The action plan is competency driven because of our student standards, and it's created by school counselors to address the standards and competencies. School counselors work collaboratively to determine what content will be covered in each lesson and align it with student mindset and behavior standards. School counselors create the action plan and calendar these lessons and collect participation mindset and behavior, and outcome data. And again, we're going to be digging into data again. So you will see how this all aligns. Now, where to begin for an action plan? You begin with what you're already doing. There's no magic number of lessons. The number and content are determined by your setting, population, student outcome goals. Consider your goals and what lessons will help you reach them. You also want to consider developmental needs of all students and within their grade levels. What lessons help transcend those needs? Consider specific transitions that occur at your level and what lessons foster successful navigation of those transitions. So when I think about core curriculum that all students receive here at Pete, thinking about being at the junior high level, we have 8th grade that by the state are required to create 4-year plans. So we do a lot of exploration of self in our health and careers class. So by the end of the 8th grade year, every 8th grader in that grade level gets career exploration of self in connection to careers. They get a 4-year plan. We talk about values and vision, and that is something that all 8th graders get. And we cater to that because we know 8th graders not only need a 4-year plan, but they're kind of right in the middle of us. They're kind of right in the middle of the junior high where we're transitioning them to the junior high from 6th to 7th grade, and we're preparing them for what's ahead. And then we will work on transition when they're in 9th grade. Continuing with action plans. When you design, the school counselor designs the curriculum by selecting specific mindset and behavior standards, 1, maybe 2 tops that address student needs as demonstrated through the school data. Lessons are selected or created to help students gain the appropriate knowledge, attitudes, or skills specified in the plan. Mindset and behavior standards should drive the delivery of this content. It's a working document that is revised and improved. You want to keep refining this action plan as data show your students' needs and how they're changing. So you can see screenshots of an action plan, part of the action plan, especially the behavior social skills for Pete. So you can see that we do a 7th grade girls workshop that's considered a large group. Even my small group, or actually lead, is a girls leadership group. That's a large group. But you can see how for the behavior standards, social skills 2, how there are 3 different large groups and small groups that meet that standard, that work to meet that standard. So you can see for the large groups, I marked the X in the column with class or large, and how the girls circle, 7th grade girls small group, is marked in the column, the last column on the right, SG, for small group. Now, implementation. Mindset and behavior standards are taught using a variety of curriculum materials and activities, some that we create on our own as school counselors, and we'll talk about that, and some that we get from other curriculum. Student attainment of the standards is assessed using pre and post tests, product creation, or even activity completion. So measuring results is essential. Linking the lessons to the enhancement of a behavior or mindset changes in achievement, attendance, or discipline. So let's see this example here. All right, so you can see this is a post-test results. This is a data chart that I create where you can see I am measuring growth pre and post, specifically on the behavior standard self-management 10. And the question is, I believe, so again, that's assessing growth and attitude. I believe I have the skills to transition to junior high and adapt to the changing responsibilities. So behavior self-management 10 is ability to manage transitions and adapt to change. So as you can see, this is measuring growth and belief or attitude if they can manage a transition to junior high and adapt to that change. So you can see pre and post based on how they answered there. Scrolling down, you can see the next question, I know. So assessing growth and knowledge. I know the classes I will be taking at Pete and what they are about. So assessing growth and knowledge. Remember the ASK acronym, attitudes, skills, knowledge. So the first question was attitudes. This is knowledge. This is how I do my data chart. I always like to show what we're measuring growth in, pre and post, and what the question is so that you can see how it's tied to the mindset and behavior standards set out for the lesson. Again, choosing just 1 or 2, because if you choose more than 2, it's almost like when you highlight everything on a page, you essentially highlight nothing. And ASCA believes that if you are trying to measure growth and your focus is on multiple mindset and behavior standards, that you're just not really, you're skimming the surface of all of them and not really digging in to measure growth on 1 or 2 of them. So now you can see, I know what extracurricular activities are offered at Pete and which ones I want to get involved in. This is not only a measure in knowledge, but in the learning strategies 10, which is participation in enrichment and extracurricular activities. And I will show you guys how to create these data charts so that you can hit the ground running with them as you feel comfortable as you start your work as school counselors. I understand how various Pete staff can help me, again, measuring growth and knowledge. I can demonstrate appropriate behaviors that will help me be successful at Pete. That is coming from the behavior standard social skills 9 and having the skills to appropriately demonstrate. So a growth in both. And then their sense of confidence in transitioning Pete. So the pre came before our hour-long presentation to all sixth graders in their sixth grade classrooms. The post we had them take after the hour-long presentation to see how we could measure growth in that one lesson that we did with them upon their transition to junior high. So that is the example there. All right, again, the ASCA mindset behaviors guide the planning and delivery of all student activities and all student interventions. Action plans help school counselors intentionally create an effective plan to teach attitudes, skills, and knowledge based on the mindsets and behaviors and within the 3 domains of academic, career, and social emotional development. Core curriculum activities at the tier 1 level are presented systemically and sequentially through a student's K-12 education. Looking at classroom and small group lesson plans, just as teachers design lesson plans, school counselors preparing to teach content in the classroom are setting out to do the same as well. As you can see here, you will notice that there is a lesson plan, and this is an example from the ASCA implementation guide. There is the lesson plan for understanding bullying, stopping mean behaviors. You can see that it's the second lesson out of 3. You can see that they had 2 behavior standards in the social skills domain chosen for this as what they're teaching for kids, what they're really focusing on, and how they use those to then turn into learning objectives. This is great for you to kind of tuck away, again, when you have to look at your comprehensive school counseling project and how you create a lesson plan and how you use the ASCA template to do so. You can see the different parts of the lesson plan. On the right there, the lesson plan development includes the mindsets and behaviors you're choosing, again, 1 or 2, how they get turned into learning objectives, what students will be able to do, the materials you will need, if it's evidence-based, best practice, action researched, research informed. A lot of times I feel like I'm using best practice or evidence-based research. If it is curriculum created, it might be research informed or evidence-based. Also, then the 5th component is the procedure, how you work through the lesson, describing how you will teach the content and the behavior and mindset standards. 6 is your data plan, talking about your data story in a sense. That data collection plan is a great way for you to know how you're going to seek out the participation data, the mindsets and behaviors data, and the outcome data. And then the 7th component is following up. Now, looking at classroom and small group lesson plans in even more detail, I already showed you the components, but when you look at the ASCA mindsets and behaviors and that first component of a lesson plan, you want to identify again 1 to 3, again, 1 or 2 is even probably most ideal, as standards for the lesson. And the selected standards guide the lesson content. They turn into learning objectives. So for the learning objectives, you want to state a clear, measurable learning objective related to the selected competency. Verbs lists from the revised Bloom's taxonomy may be helpful in writing measurable learning objectives. But again, they are brief statements describing what students will learn during the course of a classroom lesson. Objectives are meant to drive the lesson content rather than the other way around. School counselors plan objectives by thinking about the attitudes, skills, and knowledge they want their students to obtain by the end of the lesson. Now, materials, listing the materials that you need to deliver the lesson. Whether it's evidence-based, research-informed, you want to identify the level of evidence available regarding the anticipated efficacy of the lesson. For the procedure, this includes the following sections. You're going to introduce the topic, the content, maybe a warm-up of sorts, communicate the lesson objective, how you teach the content, how you then practice the content, summarize, and close. Or the assessment plan. This is that data collection, that data story. You're going to determine how participation, mindset, and behaviors and outcome data will be collected And again, finishing up with the follow-up. If the lesson is important enough to teach, it is important that all students master the competency and learning objectives. Express how you will follow up with any student who does not master the competencies and objectives of the lesson. So example, meet with all group members individually at the end of the first semester for a brief check-in. That would be an example of a follow-up. Student engagement strategies. Again, this is important for you to kind of look at specific strategies, and this by no means is a full layout. These are just some that I'm bringing to your attention, links to resources for you, again, to put tools in your toolbox. However, when you create 3 lessons, your team, your group for the Comprehensive School Counseling Project will create 3 lesson plans. And I'm requiring that as you're filling out the Ask a template of the lesson plan, that you're also including 1 student engagement strategy as a part of the procedure. So it could be a part of how you introduce the topic, maybe how you're communicating the lesson objective. Most likely, those engagement strategies are a part of how you're teaching the content or practicing the content. So again, effectively engaging students throughout the beginning, middle, and end of classroom lessons is essential. You will see here for these strategies, there's actions and expressions. So multiple means of action and expression. It's kind of a choice board for students to express knowledge other than writing. So looking at here, this is something that has been shared with our Cedar Falls school staff as ways to include different means of expression that could really engage students. And so I think this is something that would just be really good for you guys to see. Also, there's going to be pull cards. So give each student a 3x5 index card as they come into the classroom, write their name on it. You can ask them to write other information, maybe that aligns with the lesson topic, or answer a pre-test question. Then you're going to collect cards and use to randomly choose students to participate during the lesson. Calling on students randomly throughout the lesson, rather than relying solely on raised hands, can set the expectation that all students will participate in the lesson. Additionally, by asking the student to respond to a question that aligns with the lesson topic, the school counselor can activate prior knowledge, which is really cool. Pull cards engage the entire class of students because they don't know who will be chosen, so you can keep them on their toes. There's also the playbook of instructional strategies. So I have created a folder of instructional strategies from community building to critical thinking. The table of contents is linked to all of these different strategies, as this is something that is shared with you guys that you can use. And again, really effective for classroom instruction when you are teaching core curriculum to every student in a class, a grade level, things like that. So in just these 4 student engagement strategies, obviously the multiple means of action and expression in the playbook of instructional strategies include a wealth of strategies. In 4 corners, you can read a statement to the class related to lesson topic and allow them to think of whether they strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Hang signs in the 4 corners of the classroom with the 4 choices and ask students to move to the corner that applies to them. I love using this strategy actually, and we use it a lot with our SEL curriculum, Character Strong. So in a corner, you give them 1 to 2 minutes to discuss their reason with others and be prepared to share to the whole class. The school counselor will facilitate a short discussion based on the different perspectives. So this is really great for the social emotional learning competency of social awareness, being able to have students share from different perspectives because they chose a different corner of the room. 4 corners is a great strategy to allow students to express their opinions and to practice listening to the thoughts and ideas of others. So through providing a format that both demonstrates and celebrates diversity, students can consider the perspective of others. And anytime you can encourage kids to do that is always a win. All right, so section 3, deliver. Again, reading in the Ask a National model, pages 77 to 81, so not too long, but ways to deliver core curriculum at Tier 1. As part of the planning process, school counselors will collaborate with teachers to determine the best times to present classroom lessons. Ideally, school counselors will select subject areas that allow for the most number of students to be impacted. I know for us at Pete, we have some students who are accelerated in math, so we are never going into math to do grade level content because we have so many kids that are in different grade levels based on placement. So it's always best when teachers can be present and involved in the lesson so that they can also enhance and reinforce the content after school counselors leave. And I see that especially in the elementary if you have those classroom teachers hearing your lesson, because they can use that throughout the week because they see the students throughout the whole day. How school counselors approach entering the teacher's classroom definitely matters. As it is interrupting instructional time, it's appropriate to be aware and respectful. During an age of increased accountability for student outcomes, teachers are equally concerned about student achievement and success. Teachers and administrators need to hear and see value in the school counselors using instructional time to provide core curriculum that ultimately contributes in a meaningful way to the instructional learning environment and student development in our 3 domains. So evidence-based practice and core curriculum. This refers to school counselors selecting a curriculum that was previously found to be effective, delivering this curriculum and measuring its impact with the school population. Prepackaged research-based curriculum is not easily found at the secondary level. Believe you me, working at the secondary level, I feel like I have started so many different lessons, initiatives, activities from scratch or in collaboration with other counselors. There's definitely not as many prepackaged curriculums or free ones at that. Overcoming Obstacles has been a great free curriculum that I've used, but I have found the trouble and the challenge in finding prepackaged social emotional learning curriculums. But luckily, Character Strong came into play for us about a year ago, and it has been fantastic. Many evidence-based programs are primarily for elementary, with some research-based curriculums. While some are out there, they might be costly and in many cases have multiple lessons. So typically far more than the school counselor has time to deliver alone, especially at the secondary level. So when I think about Character Strong in our building, because we are wanting it to be direct services, tier 1, in order to hit all 675 of our kids, we have to utilize teachers to deliver our SEL curriculum. And we do it every Monday with the extra time we have in 4th hour, because it's a shortened day due to our 90-minute late start for collaborative team time. So when I think about, that prepackaged curriculum that our district was willing to invest in for social emotional learning, it's obviously evidence-based, and we're very thankful that our teachers can partner with us. And we as administrators and school counselors go in and teach it for teachers. Sometimes we tag in, take out, or we always have a teacher that maybe is out on a Monday that we cover for as well. So at the secondary level, school counselors often use self-generated curriculum. With this, school counselors are encouraged to use data, needs assessments, and their professional knowledge and experience as guides to designing their own lesson development that aligns to research-based best practices. With this approach, school counselors use their knowledge of and experience with the students they serve to generate a curriculum that meets the developmental needs of their students. School counselors, 1, research content and resources, 2, create lesson plans and actively teach the lesson using a variety of engagement strategies, 3, measure students' gains in attitudes, skills, and knowledge. Next, 4, assess achievement-related and achievement data aligning with the lesson content. 5, diligently evaluate their materials and lesson to make modifications if needed. With experience and time, school counselors will determine core curriculum lessons that best fit the needs of their students as they assess and modify lesson topics and contents yearly. So when we go in, my co-counselor and I go into 7th grade exploratories and we teach on internet safety and digital decision-making, we have utilized some common sense media content. So Common Sense Media is a great resource with free lessons. But we also incorporated some of our self-generated curriculum based on our student needs. And so we kind of merged those two together. There's videos or discussion questions we utilize from Common Sense, but then we also put in our own content because of needs we see with our 7th graders. So here we go, research-based curriculum versus school counselor generated curriculum. So as you can see, there is kind of a pro cons, benefits versus challenges column for both of these. So you can see for research-based curriculum, we know benefits that it's evidence supporting effectiveness. It is pre-packaged, pre-made, and ready to go, right? Easy to pick up and teach with little prep. Proven impact, which is great. And there's several lessons supplied with pre-packaged curriculums. We also know that they can sequence and scaffold lessons. And when teachers buy in, the whole school supports delivery It also may be scripted, so it's also easy to go. I know when I started my career at Des Moines Public Schools at the elementary, they had research-based curriculum called the Smoother Sailing curriculum, very pre-packaged throughout my whole year. Each month was a topic. They had, for each grade level, they kind of had a script. They had my material supplied. It was a very helpful way to start out. But man, there are so many counselors out there that start and need to self-generate that off the bat. And that's hard. My co-counselor being newer, she and I have recreated a lot of our content this year based on just a new collaboration style and us using our creativity and our prior knowledge and skills together, and looking at that and deciding that together to make it our program and where our students are now. So challenges, obviously, it can cost a lot to buy those prepackaged curriculums. We also know that it's maybe not culturally aligned with our district demographics. It could be, too many lessons that we have the time to implement with fidelity. You guys can kind of read throughout the challenges. You can see this screenshot yourself. And again, looking at the benefits of school counselor generated curriculum, it's free. We're creating it. It allows us to use our creativity in the school counseling process. Again, you guys can tell by my Google Slides that I love using creativity in different slideshow templates and different fonts. It's just how I want to incorporate different engagement strategies for kids by keeping it relevant and fresh and fun, but also it just creates fun and creativity for me in coming up with the content. It also can help us work on revising our curriculum because we are the ones creating it. And it can encourage us to collaborate, divide up lessons. There could be online lessons that are easy to locate. Also, it can take local developmental needs into account based on our district demographics. It can be very tech savvy, cutting edge technology, engaging because we are creating it and infusing that. And so you can then see the challenges. It takes time to create our own lessons and our own curriculum, and it's hard to find that time. It requires more prep to create those lessons. They might not always go well. They may not be sequenced or scaffolded and not evidence-based, but always intentionally set to be best practice. So you can kind of read that there, but I think this is just a great thing for you guys to see based on whatever developmental stage you end at, knowing what those prepackaged research-based, evidence-based curriculums are versus what we self-generate ourselves. This is also a really good graphic, the Ask a National model and suggested use of time. So again, you guys can see based on the developmental stage you want to end up at, whether elementary, middle school, high school. And again, some people love the K-12 aspect, or they love thinking about 7-12 or 6-12. But thinking about tier 1 core curriculum in direct services, you can see at the elementary, it is the most amount of percentage of time. And that's because school counselors at the elementary level are doing classroom guidance lessons, or what they call classroom instruction, a lot more than we are at the secondary level. And you can see the least amount in the high school. It is hard for high school counselors to get into classrooms to present. Teachers are less likely to give up classroom time. It's hard. We're very thankful. I'm very thankful for the teachers I have because they are willing to give us class time, and that's not everywhere. Again, still focusing on direct services. When you think about individual student planning, at the elementary, they do that a lot less because individual student planning comes a lot more with the developmental stage in the secondary arena when we're talking about 4-year plans and college and career exploration and college and career readiness. So you can see our percentage is higher, and even more so at the high school. Responsive services, that is when you're meeting with students individually in small groups. When you think about percentage of time, now obviously elementary might have more in responsive services, although they really have to balance that with being in the classroom so much as a part of their week at a glance. When you think about junior high, high school, middle school, responsive services is about the same. We are maybe in classrooms, balancing responsive services. And definitely depends on time of year too. I know at the secondary level, we're really busy with scheduling in the spring season. And so those responsive services could look a little bit less, but individual student planning, a whole lot more. All right, these are more evidence-based interventions for your toolbox. So these are different links that you can access for evidence-based interventions and strategies. I love attendanceworks.org, things that they have on attendance, and with attendance being one of our outcome goals that we're always seeking after, I think it's great. I love SCALE. A lot of people don't know about SCALE, the School Counseling Analysis, Leadership, and Evaluation. You can type a topic, search a category, and it will give you free lessons from RAMP schools. So recognized ask a model programs and their small group core curriculum closing the gap results report. This is a great place. So if you're thinking about attendance and you want to look at RAMP applications from, actually, you'd probably be able to see some of Pete's in there, which is great because we ramped, we'd probably be a part of either the 18 or 19, depending if they're looking at your submission year or the data collection year. So again, you can utilize this, and this is great. More school counselors need to know about this. So again, check out these resources. These are things for you to utilize now, maybe for your comprehensive school counseling project, as well as tuck away for when you are hitting the ground running in the field. So don't forget, you are reading Chapter 7 in Building Trauma-Sensitive Schools, as well as answering discussion questions in UIU Learn. The discussion questions for this week. So question 1, in your opinion and regarding your learning, what are some fundamental components, strategies that make Tier 1 universal services more successful? So again, I think building trauma-sensitive schools will kind of help process some of your thinking for this, but also just thinking about what you know about universal services at Tier 1, thinking about your perspective, your prior knowledge, and what you were learning. What do you think those fundamental components and strategies are? And then question 2, based on Chapter 7 in Building Trauma-Sensitive Schools, what was your main takeaway? What is new learning for you when it comes to universal strategies? I think it's always great to reflect on new learning and what you're taking away from these readings. And then don't forget to respond to at least one peer. Okay, so now we're looking at the response to intervention pyramid. This is your next assignment that is due at the end of week 10. There is a digital copy of the intervention pyramid linked here. I created this because I felt like in some ways it would be helpful to type in digitally the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions that you were thinking of. So when you open this, you can make a copy, insert a text box, which might actually already be in there, and use that for your assignment. Otherwise, the assignment rubric is also linked here, so you can see how I'm scoring your intervention pyramids. You can look through here. Again, I don't know about you. As type A, I only look at the top amount of points and then try to just meet everything from that top amount. But again, your reading in trauma-sensitive schools in Chapter 6, 7, and 8 are going to help you with this project, thinking about interventions and instruction strategies at every tier. So there's the rubric. Also a digital copy. You will also see a paper copy in the back of the Building Trauma-Sensitive Schools book. It's in the appendix. And you can always make a paper copy if you would just rather write it in as well. So do what works for you. What's ahead? So next week, week 9, we are talking about Tier 2 and Tier 3. Week 10, indirect services. Week 11, crisis intervention and prevention. Week 12 is the ASCA student standards. Week 13 is looking at ASCA's 4th edition templates, which you guys saw already in this lesson with the action plan and the lesson plan template. Week 14, this is where I started talking about that school counseling project, the comprehensive school counseling project, and that is due at the end of week 14. And week 15 is going to be project sharing. That is all I have for you this week in week 8. I hope you learned something new within Tier 1 Universal Services. Thank you and see you next week.